This is TWiT.
This is something that is quite polarizing. Personally, I see it on both ends of the spectrum. But what exactly is happening here with this gamification of the different tasks happening for all of the warehouse employees there at Amazon?
Yeah, so my reporting kind of uncovered that in Amazon warehouses in at least 20 states around the U.S., some Amazon workers, specifically the pickers and sorters in the warehouses, some aspects of their jobs now have these gamification screens installed in them. And what that means is instead of kind of going about your day having to take stuff off robotic shelves and put it in a robotic kind of tread or kind of sort thing, what you end up doing is you do that exact same part of your job, but depending on how fast you work or how well you complete certain tasks, you can earn points on a kind of video game arcade screen installed in your workstation. And those points can be used to play one of 6 games, which all kind of have a retro arcade feel. One of them seems like Tamagotchi. It's called Tamazilla, and you can spend points to buy virtual pets like narwhals or sparkly dragons, and then spend points accrued by your labor to like raise them and whatnot. Or in the other ones, you can compete against your fellow warehouse workers to race a car around the track, but how fast you go is dependent on how quickly you do your job. So it raises kind of a lot of questionable issues because, one, this is making workers, I guess, days more enjoyable. That's why Amazon's doing it. But it also is kind of encouraging them to go faster, work harder for imaginary internet points.
Okay, with that said, bottom line right here, is this actually working for Amazon? Is Amazon seeing any type of efficiency increase with this gamification, or is it just another way for them to collect data to figure out how they can motivate their employees?
So it's kind of a complicated answer. Amazon started testing this program. It's called FC Games, originally in one warehouse in 2017, and has since expanded it out to warehouses all across the country. Amazon didn't tell me specifically whether or not that change was motivated by increased efficiency, but Amazon rarely does anything that decreases worker efficiency. Mm-hmm. It did say that this seemed to motivate workers and they seemed to enjoy it, which was what prompted them to roll it out. But this is also the same company that tracks every single thing that all these workers do. And if you don't perhaps pick and stow objects at the pace they want, you'll get fired. So, right.
Now, with this gamification in place, is this a requirement for the warehouse workers, or do they have a choice?
They have a choice, and that's what Amazon says. It's just an extra screen kind of attached to their workstation. They can choose to play it if they want to. Some workers that I spoke to said they kind of feel pressure from maybe their boss or manager to specifically play the games as a way to kind of track your progress, but that may just be an anecdotal evidence from 1 or 2 people. Overall, it seems to, in my opinion, kind of just be one new addition to Amazon's overall kind of encroachment into every aspect of these workers' lives.
When I see stories like this, I try to put myself in the shoes of a warehouse worker, because a lot of people will come at me and tell me I have all of this privilege for being able to do what I do for a living. And it's not quite the same as working in a warehouse for 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day. But I can go ahead and tell you, I have worked in those types of situations before. And in my experience, there were times where I'm thinking, okay, I'm sitting here making this widget for 12 hours, and the process of making the widget was hitting one button over and over and over and over. And 12 hours doing that is a long time. And I could see where someone would want to, spice up that shift a little bit to keep them from falling asleep, because you're probably going to slow down just from being bored doing the same repetitive task over and over again. Then there's the other side of the coin where you take a retail store, because I've also worked in retail. some retailers will have some sort of gamification with spiffs and things like that. You need to upsell this item to get an additional bonus. And what's happening there is management is saying, hey, we need to pick up the production on this particular item because we got so many of them, we need to make our money back. But you don't hear any of the retailers catching the flack that Amazon is catching for doing pretty much the same type of practice here with this gamification. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of a gamification in its many forms is used in a lot of different industries. I think the main difference here is that Amazon's warehouses, according to research from the National Employment Labor Institute, I believe, and the Seattle Times, it's found that Amazon's warehouses have a really high rate of injury for warehouses and also extremely high turnover, which kind of suggests that workers are maybe being put in dangerous or unsafe situations more often than they should. And some of the warehouse workers that I spoke with said that while the games were better than nothing at all, they and some of their colleagues would prefer to not have them in some cases because it would inadvertently incentivize them to work faster, which is also how you get hurt in these sort of situations. And they'd prefer, I don't know, if it's talking about their enjoyment, being able to listen to a podcast or listen to music or do something that isn't explicitly tied to their productivity. But, I mean, as you said, it's kind of two sides of a coin.
The one, more of a question, or more of a clarification rather than a question, just to make sure, because I saw some early responses to this, and they led to misunderstanding, I believe, about this program. And so I want to ask, because there were comparisons drawn to the company store, which was this idea that what you worked for a company, and instead of earning money, or instead of entirely earning money, you would earn money and sort of a token you would add those up, and then you would be able to buy things at the company store with the token. And that, of course, led to all sorts of trouble with these games and the points that you earn. This is all entirely virtual, all entirely related to the game and keeping the character alive. And these are not points that can be redeemed for actual objects or actual benefits in real life, correct?
Yeah, so FC Games, which is the name of the platform, is kind of self-contained, involves its own virtual currency. There's another Amazon program that isn't part of FC Games, but kind of is tracked using the same metrics, where Amazon will reward employees during peak periods or periods where they need higher production. They'll reward employees for meeting specific production goals with something called eSwag, which is kind of like what you're talking about, where you can have 45 eSwag points and get a Amazon branded snapback or something like that at the company store.
So there is real trade-in.
There is, okay. But that's a different program, and that's yeah, interesting. Okay, that was my only question, because for me, I think that sort of idea is what takes things to an even more oily place. But yeah, what certainly. You said, the incentivization, yeah, we'll go with that. Being incentivized to work harder, faster, et cetera, and resulting in injuries and things like that. And particularly, I mean, was there any discussion or conversation about these types of games in relation to the global pandemic, where folks may be more apt to make dangerous choices because of the gaming and not necessarily be as safe or as smart about the requirements put in place for the pandemic? So I didn't specifically speak to Amazon about the pandemic, but from what we can tell, a large part of this rollout has happened within the last year, which of course has coincided with the pandemic, when Amazon's notoriously high turnover has been even higher due to health concerns. I think it's also worth mentioning that from what we've been able to tell, it seems like the gaming platform is only being installed in fulfillment centers that have robotics, which are kind of the fulfillment centers where warehouse workers, you essentially just stand in one location and robots will bring a bunch of stuff to you back and forth, and you just have to pick stuff from a shelf and put it in a basket. But these robotics-enabled fulfillment centers are also a investigation a year or two ago from Reveal found that according to Amazon's own internal safety documents, robotics fulfillment centers experience a much higher injury rate than other fulfillment centers because robots often get in the way of workers and vice versa.
Robots are robots, right?
They are robots, unfortunately. Or fortunately.
Unbelievable. Well, this has been an interesting discussion. I'm sort of on both sides of the fence because Amazon has a job to do because there are paying customers that are paying for the Amazon services. But at the same time, you do need to honor and respect workers' rights and make sure the people working there are being taken care of. So it's a really, really touchy subject.